my parents' divorce, or like the relationship with my brothers, or like going to London and living by myself and that sort of thing. So it was interesting, like they were hearing it firsthand as well.
Right. I'm standing in silence, holding on for dear life. Reprimand.
Honestly, with me is singer, songwriter, producer, label owner, self-publisher. He's going to teach us all about the industry, all of the things that we need to know. The incredible Jordan Rakei. Welcome to my
Hello,
Zoom.
how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? Before we get into any of the music, we are in like level 7 million of some form of lockdown. I don't know what day it is, what year it is. How have you been doing through the global pandemic that we've all been experiencing?
It's been, for me personally, it's been like a ride of ups and downs. Like at first I weirdly enjoyed the freedom in a juxtaposition sense of like having time to myself for once. But then after all the months of being in the house, like, yeah, my sanity is like completely depleted. My everything, like even listening to music now, listening to podcasts, like everything, I'm sort of just not enjoying as much because I'm not getting that real world connection anymore. So I feel like finally the UK has opened back up and like I'm getting it all back again and listening to music again. And yeah, I feel like I'm coming back up.
Hmm. It's so weird that you say that. I was speaking to a very good friend of mine this morning who said that he's in Australia and they've just in Melbourne and they've just gone back into another extended lockdown. And he was saying what he did today was he cleaned the whole house. He did the washing, the ironing, the dishes, everything. And then he was like, I'll reward myself with a really nice whiskey. And he sent me a message and he was like, I think there's something wrong with me. I'm not enjoying this whiskey. And I was like, I think it's exactly that. I think we're so overtired. We're so drained. This COVID
Yeah,
fatigue is really real. And all of the small things that we used to use as a reward system, we've been doing it for so long now that I think it's time we get out and see real people and drink whiskey in
definitely.
company.
Definitely. I think even the small things like walking my dog, I really appreciate now.
Mm,
And going out every day at a certain time and going to different locations and just enjoying a bit of sunlight. Even if it's raining, I'm like, oh, this is nice. You
yeah.
know, I'm out of the house. But yeah, it's been a tough time for me and lots of my friends.
I know. I think it's a tough time for everyone, but you've still you've gifted us some really good tunes. But we'll talk about that. I first want to talk about you a little bit. You are from New Zealand. You're currently in the UK. Was music always something? Was it in your family? How did you end up with this bug biting you?
It was like I would say I grew up in a very musical household where no one played music in the sense of like playing the instruments.
Yeah.
So like it started with my neighbor giving us their piano. They were like throwing their piano out and they gave us our piano and me and my brothers would just sort of tinkle on it. And I was 5, my older brother was 6 and my little brother was 4. So we're all a year apart and we were like in between like rugby training and sport would be like playing on the piano. Um, and then they sort of stopped and I kept going and then we picked up guitar and they sort of stopped and I kept going and I just sort of have kept going. Do you know what I mean? I never really decided to do this as a thing. It's just I've just kept going with music. We all learned how to produce music at the same time as well, and then they stopped and I kept going as well. So it's been this sort of like rivalry with my brothers that turned into like a career.
Was there ever the pressure to get a real job, like one with like benefits and medical and stuff?
Yeah, definitely. There was when I finished high school, I was actually going to go and study engineering, because I was like really good at maths and weird. I know it's very weird, but then I remember my parents telling me like, you can do that later down the line. You're too good at music. You should just pursue it first, which is one of those rare situations where like,
Wow.
um, I know other parents like squash their creative dreams and make that sort of thing. So I was really lucky. I had parents that like supported me because I didn't even realize it was an option. I just sort of did it and then I enjoyed it. I did my university degree and then I was just like, hey, I enjoy this, I'm going to keep doing it and make a debut EP. And then it's sort of just been a trajectory ever since.
So you go from like this competition with your brothers to having all of these followers on Instagram. Your music is blowing up across the world. But before you even get there, you decide that you're going to start your own label. Is it 1501 that you started?
4101.
Well, yeah. Tell me about this. Why the need for that?
Well, it was at the time when like that was at a time when I was like, self-managed. I wanted to self-release everything. I was like recording everything myself. I wanted to like control everything. So I think it's an element of like being young, hearing all these stories of how like the industry is evil and they take all your rights and they do all that sort of thing. And I was like, I want to create my own thing where I can own it straight away and just release it. Um, and retain the rights instantly, because even at that young age I sort of remember doing a few modules in university where they talked about copyright and they talked about royalties, and I was like scarred by the major label system. So yeah, I decided to just like self-release that album via my own thing. And 4101 is like the area where I grew up in, Brisbane, which is in Australia. um, and it's like a cool little suburb of, yeah, it's just my childhood basically, and I wanted to do a bit of a nod to to my local vibe.
So, what is the difference between doing it that way and then being signed? Is there a massive, I mean, obviously you're doing less work when you're signed, but then you then have less control. What has the difference been for you?
It's understanding that like someone else is a business partner in your albums and they're investing money, so there is an element of compromise you just have to make. And that's the thing that like artists sort of rarely talk about, and I'm open about it because I really enjoy working with Ninja Tune. But like, you have to understand there are so many people involved. There's like, they have a staff of about 100 people and they're all investing into your music, like with their time and also their money. So it's like understanding I can't deliver them this super abstract left field album. There needs to be something of like, do you know what I mean? There needs to be like an element of like, can we work with this? So
Yeah.
there's always like, when I'm making the album and sending demos, we're talking about the music and like, where can this song go? Like, it's really open, just between us, like a creative relationship. And then when we talk about visuals, it's like collaborative as well. So it's much more like, yeah, team focus. Everyone's on this mission together. Whereas before you're like, I can do anything I want. It's me against the world. But sometimes that model doesn't work because people just have this like weird, like inflated sense of ego where they feel like all their ideas are good. And that was something I learned with being with a label. I used to suggest things and they're like, not sure. And then in hindsight, they made the right decision. So I think that's a big learning curve, like understanding that people can help you get to your goal.
Mm.
You don't have to do it all by yourself.
How do you make the how do you disassociate that from feeling compromised? Because I feel like a lot of people who, like yourself, wanted to make these abstract, weird, great albums that just speak to like you as a person and the universe and all the things. And then they're saying no. Don't you then feel like you're being compromised as an artist?
Yeah, at times, yeah, there were stages of that. Like in my, it's funny because like there was a song on my first album with Ninja Tune, which ended up being the track May, which is the second track. It used to be an instrumental song, and it was a 7-minute journey of like wall of sound, and it was this big building, like beautiful atmospheric thing. And they were like, it's cool, but people gravitate towards your narrative and your lyrics, and like, can you put, and I was like, oh, I want to be this wall of sound artist, and I love instrumental music. So at the time I was like angry because for the first time ever, I had received like a bit of criticism about my creative direction. However, I sort of took that advice on board. I sat on it for a few months and then wrote what's potentially one of my favorite songs I've made. And I play it now and all over the world. And that's the one people connect with the most because it's about the passing of my grandmother, and it's like really deep, heartfelt lyrics. And like, that wouldn't have come without the compromise of the initial compromise. So like, it's a struggle. It's like, I appreciate it when you receive that feedback. As an artist, no artist likes hearing any feedback. But it's the objective feedback when you sort of sit back and go, maybe people are right. Like my manager or my label or even my wife, when they say something, there's like, and then you go and do it and you're like, actually, it's the right decision. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean about you can't really do everything yourself. Otherwise you sort of go in this, direction.
I think it's all about removing the emotion because it's not an emotional thing for them and it is for you. And I think that must be so
Yeah.
difficult because you are creating, you're giving of yourself in this thing that you've created, and then I wouldn't have it in me to come to you as anyone on your label and go, no. I would just be like, yes, let him do everything, just let him have all of the things.
Yeah, it's hard because like they're like that as well, because Ninja Tune's super open. They have like quite left field music as well. But at the same time, like this is the funny thing in my career. It's like I've always been stuck with the complex of my voice, as in my singing voice, has potential to be bigger than I am. But
Mm,
my music, I like small abstract music. So like I'm meeting in this middle ground. My voice is able to get me to a place. But sometimes I think people like my label and my managers and everyone that I know are always like, oh, just imagine if Jordan did this with his voice. He would be like, he would skyrocket. And so even when people tell me that, I understand that. I mean, it's always hard fighting that whole temptation of like not selling out, but just making potentially more simple music where my voice can like transcend.
yeah.
Because in a weird way, I'm like I think of myself as a producer first. That's lucky enough to sing. So like my voice is more of an asset to my music. It's not the focal point,
Mm.
but people like connect to my voice. So it's like it's a funny one I struggle with all the time.
I think that's a really beautiful dichotomy. You are the producer first and the singer second. So it must be an incredible thing because I've sat in studios where producers and singers do not and writers do not speak the same language. And I'm listening to all of them and I'm like, I understand this. I don't know why you guys don't understand each other. But you get it. So like you see the vision and then you can create the vision with no stress and no fighting. It must be great.
that's that's seriously the best thing. I always try and encourage other singers is being your own producer, even at least developing producer language so you're able
Mm,
to like articulate yourself. Because
mm.
all I think production is, people think it's like really deep, computer stuff or like
Oh,
knowing how to record an
don't tell
orchestra.
people the secrets, Jordan. Don't tell
No,
people
all the
the
secret is
secrets.
like, can I get this sound out of my head onto the computer?
Yeah.
Like you might go, oh, I hear a string section coming in there. That's all production is. You sort of hear a vision and you just like articulate it. So I'm luckily able to do it myself, so I can control everything, which is amazing. And I don't fight myself.
I was just going to say, I find that could be very dangerous because if you're controlling everything yourself, at what point is it enough? At what point is it good enough? At what point is like, okay, we're good now because there's no one telling you that.
It's true, yeah, and it's something I go through a lot, especially in the later stages of an album. I'll like write my demos and then I'll produce them up and then I'm like, is this done now? Like, what am I trying to do? And I'm always like, do I need to bring someone in to help me produce this? But what I found has been really amazing is like collaborating with all of my friends on more of a what I call like additional production level, where they come in and they go, maybe take the drums out over there, maybe just put a little synthesizer there. They do like small little additions, and it really gives me like clarity and objective thinking in the
Mm.
music. And then I go and finish it with their help, and also my label telling me to like cut the chorus or something like that. But but yeah, it's like it's weirdly like a massive collective effort on my music.
Okay, so you were talking a little bit earlier about your lyrics and your narrative, and this is I'm here for all kinds of. I read, I'm into poetry. I listen to lyrics as if they were poetry. I feel like you guys are the poets of our generation, and the
Oh.
songs that smash now are the songs that we're gonna look back and they're gonna and like I mean not unfortunately, but they're gonna be the Poes and the Byrons and the that we're going to look back on, right? And I'm going to have for generations and generations. So there is an inherent pressure, I think, to writing lyrics. And I'm talking about lyrics like the lyrics that you write. I'm not talking about the saccharine sweet pop lyrics. How does that look for you? How does that, do you start with a sound or do you start with a lyric? Do you start with a word? Where does that process begin of the writing?
I think I'm a mixture, like I mentioned before, of this whole producer mindset versus songwriter mindset. I'm like, I would say 70% of the time, I'm starting with like an idea, a sonic idea, like a sound or a
Right.
keyboard thing, and I layer the whole track, and then I sort of think about what this track sounds like in a weird way, what it sounds like visually. So I listen to a track of mine, and then I'm closing my eyes, trying to imagine anything I see, and then I sort of write down dotted points around what I see, and then that turns into a song. That's like my most common way of writing. but I feel like some of my best songs, and I think about this with like lots of artists, are the ones where are able to be performed without any production. It's like I wrote them on the piano before I even took it to the computer,
Mm.
because they flow a lot more. They, I don't know, the whole journey of that song is because I'm trying to work it out on the piano, and my lyrics and my melody is a lot stronger because I'm not relying on any production to like carry it. Whereas a lot of the time, for example, like a track on my last album, like Rolling Into One, which is like a funk groove sort of thing. Um, when I perform that solo, it's like the song just doesn't, it doesn't connect because it's like really reliant on the groove and the bass line and the chords and all this sort of thing. Whereas when I perform other songs solo, it like really connects with people because like I wrote them solo. So um, for me, lyrics, my best lyric stuff comes when I write from piano, but I feel like my best songs come from when I produce. It's weird, like I don't feel like I have a best song with the strongest lyrics, if that makes sense. It's either a really good production and cool vocal melody, but the lyrics I'm trying to fit in the production,
Mm.
or there's like a really good lyric and it's more like understated production. So I'm like on either sides of the spectrum, I think.
As we grow, I think how we create changes. Whether you're creating music, whether you're producing, whether you're writing, whatever you're doing, as you grow, you learn, and as you learn, you can put that back into the world. How has your writing style changed going through all the stages of your life? And I'm most interested to know how it changed after getting married and like being in love, but in calm love, not like passionate love.
Yeah. It's a good question. Um, my music's sort of changed. I mean, it's always sort of my goal to change my sound every album anyway, because I'm all about. I feel like otherwise I'd plateau and not enjoy making it anymore. So I always want to like set a new challenge at the start of a whole like campaign. I'll say to myself, okay, I did that this time. I want to like go over there and go to a countryside and make it, you know, write on a guitar this time, which I did for Wallflower. Um, and like lyrically, it's sort of been an evolution. I started off being very like social commentary. I didn't really talk about myself. And then my debut album was like my discovery of meditation, which was like diving into myself. And then my second album was like what I found inside myself. It's like it's been a journey, and this album is like the most sort of honest lyrically. I'm talking about therapy and my childhood and like my marriage and that sort of thing. And like you mentioned, getting married, I think it makes me realize, I sort of say this a lot to my friends, but when you're making music now and like you are, all your decisions are sort of, having to think about things collectively now, like where are you and your partner going, rather than when I'm younger, I'm like, I want to do this, I want to do this crazy genre, I want to like, I'm going over here. But now when I'm sort of making music, I'm always showing it to my wife, for example, like even early demos, and she gives me criticism. And she like, funny story is when I was making my album, um all of my initial vocal melodies were like quite low. I like singing low and calm. And she's just like, people have heard that before, why don't you just like push yourself vocally? Because I sing around the house a lot and annoy her a lot. And and she's just like, you should show people you can sing like that, you know, like vocal acrobatics, and extend your range. So then I started going into my new album and like really pushing myself vocally, and that's had a massive impact on my new album, which is like my most experimental melody stuff I've ever done. And that's purely because of my wife like pushing me in that direction. But even lyrically, there's a few, this is like, there's a few tracks on the album, it's like my first songs I've written about being in love. And she's just like, finally I get a song about me. Because in the past in the past, you know, I talk about like, I was talking about technology or you know, social anxiety. I talk about like my own experience, but now I'm sort of thinking about everything, like my childhood, like I said, my marriage, my parents, lots of stuff.
Is that scary? Like to have to know that you're releasing all of this. It's almost like a journal into the world, and everyone's going to know all about you.
It is, it's funny, it's like in a weird way, because my family are like, we're quite closed emotionally, we don't talk about these sort of things, we're like, everything's fine, everything's perfect. um and so in a weird way, I'm more so anxious, even though they've heard it now, I've sent it to them and wrote this like big email explaining it to them, but in a way I was more anxious for them to hear about it rather than the public, because the public is, you know, I don't feel I'm not worried about being judged or anything. I think it's nice to be like more vulnerable in your lyrics
Yeah.
rather than like party music, like you mentioned before about the pop sort of stuff. I'd rather just say something that means something to me. And but with my family, like I said, they never heard me talk about like my childhood or my parents' divorce or like the relationship with my brothers or like going to London and living by myself and that sort of thing. So it was interesting, like they were hearing it firsthand as well.
I think that that's beautiful. And you're so right about being authentic. Nothing connects us more than authenticity. And I think the more authentic and the more vulnerable you are as an artist or as anything that you in anything that you do, the more connection you're gonna experience. And I think there's nothing better than human connection, especially now after this last year that we've had where we're all so separate.
I
But
agree, yeah, totally.
your album is launching on the 17th of September. First single, Send My Love, is already out. I saw that you are also doing records, which I'm definitely ordering. All of this is for pre-order on your website. I will link it in the article. But talk to me about Send My Love, because this is the first one that we've heard, and we're about to start playing. So tell me about this one.
So Semi Love is it was like it was a lyrical sort of song about me being independent in London and sort of letting my family and friends know back in Australia that like I'm doing okay. Because in the past I was I mean I've said this loads before, but I was, you know, I was extremely anxious person, like very shy, very like reliant on like certain friends and like my family, and I still lived with my mum sort of thing. Sort of like one of those gamers that sit in their bedroom. And then I was just like, I've got to get to a new country to like grow as a person.
Ew.
And I've just threw myself in the deep end and went to London. And like, yeah, I'm, you know, there's still elements of like social anxiety and being shy, but it's more like I've really grown as a person, really much more confident. I've got new friends. I've got like this whole more individualistic outlook on life where I'm like really proud of what I'm doing. And it's like a fun, like lighthearted song about sending my love back to all those people that may be worried about me. Um, and that's like what it's about really. And I really like this one. In the past, you know, I used to be a bit anxious about releasing like positive music because I used to like love going into the darker stuff. But
Yeah.
I think this is a really, it's like a nice middle ground of like positivity and fun and funkiness and like a nice message. So yeah, I love this track.
Do you have a favorite track on What We Call Life?
I do. It's sort of when I first finished it, it used to mix up, but I think it's my track. Oh, it's hard.
Sorry, I'm
I probably
asking you to choose a
no.
favorite kid or a
I
favorite
know.
dog.
I would say it's probably like a track called "Runaway." I think, which is a later track in the album. I think just musically, it's exactly like where I am right now. Of like atmospheric, slightly odd music. It's like simple but also slightly complicated, and the lyrics are like reflecting on my past and like embracing a new future, like running away from the traumatic experiences, basically. And yeah, I'm just really proud of that song. I always use the analogy like, what track would I be most proud to show Herbie Hancock or something like that? And it would be that track, I think.
Okay. So you are releasing on the 17th of September. Obviously, you guys are kind of in, half out of lockdown. I mean, I don't know what's coming for you. We don't know what's coming for the rest of us. How does this release PR rollout look? How does a touring rollout look? Like, how do you navigate this now?
It's difficult because we've had to, usually when we've released albums in the past, we sort of go on a tour like a month after and keep that energy going. But we had already booked, for example, in this October, like a year and a half ago, but all of that got cancelled because of the uncertainty of COVID. So now like my shows are in April next year,
Okay.
which is exciting. But in a way, it's like it gives people time to like digest the music, and then they can come and hopefully know the lyrics or whatever. But it's just a different climate. Lots of my friends are like, "What do we do? How many singles should we release?" Everyone's releasing music at the moment because no one did in the COVID year.
Yeah.
So pardon me. It's just like it's a difficult thing to navigate. I think what we're doing is I'm trying to like do like loads of record store small shows just to keep it fun and get like people engaged and come out and see their music in its early form. But yeah, we're basically building up to the release in September 17th, releasing some more singles, and then trying to ride it all the way until April next year for touring.
We hope that, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're ready for touring in April next year. Jordan, thank you so much for this. This was great. So the album is called What We Call Life. It is out on September 17th. You can pre-order it. I will put Jordan's website in the bio and everything is there. And follow him and follow his journey, because I feel like you're going to come and visit us. I definitely feel like you're going to
Definitely, yeah. Definitely.
I found my peace alone. Besides, I see you and me all the time. For now, at least it's mine.
Jacaranda FM.